Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Give me a minute.
Sure.
I'll share my screen. Let me know once you see it. Okay. So I'll start with virtual network today. Okay. As per the content. So you guys can refer the content from here. If you type AZ-700 on Google, you'll be finding the content here. Introduction to Azure Virtual Networks. Okay. So let me open my whiteboard. It's not opening. That's one. Okay. Oh, it's just 1 minute, guys. My whiteboard is not working. So just before starting the session, can you guys uh, let me know if you all have the idea how Azure all have the idea of Azure portal, or you are starting from the very beginning? You can tell one by one and just introduce me the a short name, everyone. Hello, Kalim, can you start?
Yes, partially I know. I mean,
Okay.
I know about the
And
Azure portal and something, I need to explore more about
do you
that.
have any experience on Azure?
Oh, just, I did not do it practically. I mean, in production, I did not do it. Just I'm having some labs on
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. And next, then Ajay, can you go?
Hi, I don't have any idea about Azure, but now we are implementing in my little company. So I just want to learn about the Azure. So that's it.
Okay. And just go next by next. I don't have to call every name. Anyone has any experience on Azure other than these two guys?
Hi everyone, Devi here.
Yeah.
So I have basic experience like level 1 knowledge, basic theoretical idea of Azure.
Okay. Yeah. Why it's not working then? Okay, I'll take a session here. So, guys, today I'm gonna discuss Azure Virtual Network. Azure Virtual Network. In short form, we call it VNet. So VNet is nothing. It's where we define our IP cider ranges in Azure. So you can think of like a IP address management, and where you're defining something on the SDN level. It's not you're configuring the IPs on the router or somewhere. It's you're just defining your ranges on the Azure portal. It's on the SDN level. By SDN, I mean software defined network. And this is kind of, once you define the range on the VNet level, uh, so these VNets, like later in within these VNets, you can create the subnets, and the things within the VNet can communicate with each other without requiring any other manual intervention. Okay, so I'm just this is how I mentioned. We kind of draw the VNet diagram, like, and within, let's say this is my VNet. Okay, this is my VNet. Let's say this is VNet 1. Okay, and within VNet, I can create more subnets. So let's say this is my subnet 1. This is my subnet 2. So this is within VNet. I can create more subnets. So subnet 1, and this is subnet 2. Okay, and like I can create n number of subnets, but then it comes about virtual machines. So I can create virtual machines in the subnet. In the separate subnets, I can create the virtual machines, but I don't have to do anything for these virtual machines to talk to each other. They will automatically be talking. Sorry, they will automatically be will be talking to each other. Where it's gone. So I'll draw it again quickly. So here I have defined that these are my virtual machines. So I can create number of virtual machines within the subnet. Okay. So let's say these are all my virtual machines, which I've created in my separate subnets. And this is my VNet, VNet 1. And these are all subnets that I've defined. This is subnet 1. And subnet 2. And these are all we can call them VM, virtual machines. So this is VM, and this is my VM, let's say VMB, and this is our VMA. VMA. Okay. So these VMs will automatically be talking to each other. We don't have to do anything because these are within the same virtual network. That's why they can talk to each other. Okay, now let's come, what do we define in the virtual network? So we define the range here. Let's say I have defined a range when I was creating the virtual network. Let's say I have my range for this virtual network, I have taken 10.0.0.0/16, and from this particular range I'll have to create within this particular range, I'll have to create the subnets. So let's say I've created one subnet 10.0.0/24, and from this particular range I can create this other subnet. Let's say from which octet the IP will be changing. Guys, can you let me know? Because this is /16, right? So I can only change the IP from the last two subnets, right? Last two octets. So this is my second IP, and in similar fashion, I can have, multiple number of IPs, but I'm just talking about two subnets only. So let's leave the third one. Okay. So these will automatically be talking to each other, right? And if I go back on the content, So if you see what's basically you need to explore the virtual network, and what is the prerequisite to learn the virtual network? You need to have the understanding on IP addressing. So I suppose you all have the understanding on IP addressing and some basic understanding on DNS, not a very uh, not that like deep, right? And then some basic understanding on VPN and WAN. And further, let's discuss on the virtual network. So within virtual network, within virtual network, which IP CIDR range you can define. So basic, you can define, let's say any range except few ranges. Okay, so just tell me which particular ranges you can define. Obviously, private IP ranges. Okay. So what are all private IP ranges? You guys might already know. So I have this range 10.0.0/8. Then I have 172.16.0.0/12. And I have 192.168.0.0/16. So all these IPs ranges from, these are all my private IP ranges. But if you own any other public IP range, let's say you own some public IP range because you are working in the enterprise. So your enterprise might already own some public IP ranges. Let's say I own, it's not that I own that, but let's say my organization owns this particular range, 20.1.0.0. Even I can define that range into the for the VNet, or and then further for the subnet, but this will be the inefficient use of the public IP. So that's why we are not gonna define the public IP range on the VNet level. So it is recommended to use only RFC 1918 range whenever I'm creating the VNet. Okay, is that clear, guys? So and also there are some other ranges which Azure recommends not to define. So let's move it. So can you think of any other range that so Azure recommends not to define this range on the VNet level 127.0.0/8, and also Azure recommends not to define, I think 169, it's there. So instead of writing, so Azure recommends you that don't define these ranges, like the multicast IP range, don't define it. Obviously you can't define the broadcast IP range, loopback IP range, or the link local IP range. And here is one special IP that Azure uses for the internal DNS. So whenever you create the VNet, some internal DNS records are created on the backend automatically, and this is the Azure DNS server IP, which Azure uses to define the records, and VNet can talk to this particular internal DNS server whenever the records are created. So Azure recommend you that you can't use all these ranges whenever you are creating the VNet. Okay. And also obviously you guys might have already known. So I'll come back to my whiteboard. So whenever you create a VNet, okay, so let's say you have created a VNet, and let's say you have given it a IP range of 192.168.1.0/24. Okay, so whenever you create a VNet, and then you will create a subnet, and let's say you have given the same IP range to the subnet. So there are some IPs which are reserved by Azure even from this range. So one IP that is reserved, let's say I've created one VM here. Okay, so for this VM to talk to outside world, this need a default gateway, right? For anything I need a default gateway. Okay, and I have given this IP range to this particular subnet. So the very first IP 192.168.1.1 will always be the default gateway. So not even from not just from this range. Let's say you have taken the range 10.0.0.0/24, then in that case 10.0.0.1 will be your default gateway. And other than these two, Azure also reserves .2 and .3. So they basically reserve the 3 IP other than .0 and .255 because they are, this one will be the network and this one will be the broadcast. These are already reserved by the IP address scheme, but Azure will reserve .1, .2 and .3. Why .2 and .2, .2 and .3? It is because Azure, whenever you create a VNet, okay, so and then the subnet within the VNet, Azure needs some IPs for the private DNS assignment. So that's why they need .2 and .3 for the private DNS assignment, but you will not be seeing these ranges. It is just for their internal purposes, and you'll not be seeing these particular IP ranges. So let's say you have created a first VM in your subnet. So the very first IP range it automatically picks is 192.168.1.4, and then .5 if you create the another one, then .6 if you create the another one. So this will kind of keep go on till 254. Okay.
Sir, I have a question here. Sir, so you will not be dealing with private IP DNS ranges like 2 and 3 in your project?
No, it's not me that I'll be dealing. It's Azure reserves these ranges.
Okay. At the back end, they are doing something, but we do not need to, work with these IPs.
Yeah, we do not need to worry about what they are doing with .2 and .3. We only care about that .1 is our default gateway. So whenever, okay,
Even default gateway, we do not use anywhere, I think.
yeah, even you do not use that anywhere. But if you are looking, let's say this is your VM, okay, and if you are looking at the routing table of your VM, okay, let's say you're using the Linux VM, and if you are looking at the routing table of that VM, then you'll see that let's say this is a default route. So you'll be seeing the next hop as .1.1. So maybe sometimes you might have to define the route in your VM. So it actually happened with with me when I was very firstly working with Azure. So they've given me the task of implementing a Palo Alto firewall in Azure. So it was kind of bit confusing me at that time. So I have to create some routes in the Palo Alto, right? So I was thinking, okay, what should be the the next hop IP? So that's why you need to understand that the first IP will always be the next hop IP. So that's why I'm telling you this.
Clear.
Is it clear?
Yes, understood.
Okay. Okay, let's go back on the content. So these are all things that you can understand. You can go through the content. What is the subnet? I would recommend you to use these exercises and to go through what are all they have defined. Okay, and like all these things are defined. They've defined here. So this is naming convention. We don't care. Okay. Let's also discuss about what is Azure availability zones and what is Azure data center and how they have defined the different regions. Okay.
Sir, can you share this URL in the chat box?
Which URL? It is just simple. If you just search at, I'll even share it, but you can just search AZ-700 in Google, and I think it will be the first result. So this is your learning content that Microsoft has prepared.
Okay, we will try to find out.
Yeah, I can just share it in the chat. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you just type AZ-700, this will be there. Okay. Okay. So what do you have? Do you guys have any idea what are Azure regions and what is Azure availability zone?
Actually, regions we know a little bit, but availability zone need to, understand in depth.
Okay. So availability zone is nothing. Let's say this is my availability zone 1. Let's say this is my availability zone 2, and this is my availability zone 3. So you can create your virtual machine whenever you will be creating the virtual machine in the availability zone. You'll be getting option to create a virtual machine in availability zone 1 and sorry, in availability, let's say this is your availability zone 1, this is availability zone 2, and this is availability zone 3. So you'll be getting the option when do you want your VM to be, availability zone redundant. So this will be in the same region. So all these availability zone will be in the same region. Let's say this is my US East region. Okay, so Microsoft has and these availability zones are nothing, they are kind of a data centers. This is DC1, this is DC2, this is DC3, and all, like, let's say my AZ2 fails. So it doesn't mean that my AZ1 will fail at that time, because they are using the separate power supply. Okay, separate power supply and separate networking infrastructure, separate server infrastructure, everything different in the different availability zones. So if suppose one availability zone fails, my other availability zone will always be available. Okay, so they've kind of tried to make the redundant infrastructure so that enterprise can plan their application and their virtualization accordingly. So if you are not planning accordingly, even within the availability zones, then your VMs might still fail. Even let's say you have just planned your VM in the one availability zone, and if that fails, it means you are gonna lose your data. You're gonna lose your application. So you need to plan accordingly that my this particular VM will sit in the availability zone 1, and the same VM which is handling the same application traffic will sit in the availability zone zone 2, and other VM will sit in the availability zone 3. So if suppose anything happens to VM 1, my other VM in the other availability zone will still be available, and if say anything happens to that, my third one will still be available. So you need to plan that kind of infrastructure. It's not whenever you are creating the VM, Azure will not plan the other VMs in the other availability zones. It is your responsibility to create. They've kind of given you the flexibility to, you know, to make your infrastructure. And if you want to have like most cost friendly infrastructure, it means you can just have only single VM in one availability zone. But if you are like kind of building the redundant infrastructure, then you need to plan accordingly. You have to span your VMs in the different availability zone. So that's how you can have the different power supply, different networking infrastructure. If one availability zone is failing, then it means the other availability zones are available. Okay, and
So,
these yes, tell me.
sir, what about the backup in the same data center, the same availability zone? What do we call them if we need
No,
to?
no, no. So if you are creating the backup in same availability zone, it means you are not creating the redundant infrastructure. If that overall, let's say my power supplies fail in one availability zone, then even your backup will fail, right?
Yes, yes, it will also, because the whole
Yeah.
availability zone is down. Yeah.
But I think I understand your point. Let's say you are deploying the Palo Alto firewall, right? So on the device level, let's say my available there is nothing happening on my availability zone, but on the device level you need to plan the other kind of redundancy that is called fault domain. So if you search fault domain here, you guys need to learn it. You can come back to me on it later. Tomorrow we can discuss this. What is fault domain? So fault domain, it is within the availability zone, but it's your CPU will be distributed across the different racks, right? So just 1 minute. As your fault domain. So your fault domain 0, fault domain 1, and fault domain 2. So let's say you've created the different VMs in the different fault domain. And if one of your rack is failing, right, your other rack should be available. So it can happen that your availability zones works fine, but the power supply failure is happening on the rack level. So that's why you can also plan accordingly on the basis of the fault domain. And other thing, sometimes let's say you are having the on-prem infrastructure. So how do you do it in your on-prem? Okay, So let me, in your on-prem, what do you do? So let's say you're deploying a firewall. So let's say you're deploying one firewall here, deploying other firewall here. So you can put it in the rack 1. You can put one firewall in the rack 1, and you can put the other firewall in the rack 2. So same you can do in Azure, like you can put your devices into the different fault domains, or even better, what is better than fault domain is the availability zones. So your VNet cannot, a VNet is like limited on the region level. Okay, so VNet is limited on the region level, but your VNet can span within the different availability zones. So better you have the different firewall into the different availability zones. So let's say you are, let's say you are having a firewall right here. This is my firewall 1, and this is my firewall 2. Okay, firewall 1, firewall 2, and I have these firewalls connected in HA. Okay, but they have to be into the same VNet. Let's say they are in the same VNet. Okay, but you can plan your firewall into the different availability zones. So I'm gonna put this one into AZ1 and this one into the AZ2. So this is how you can plan the high redundancy into the different availability zones, because VNet is, VNet cannot
Cross the region.
cross the
It
regions.
has to be within the region. So
Yeah, but it can be within the you can have it spanned within the different availability zones. Okay, it can't cross the region.
okay,
Yeah.
got your point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
You mean to say availability zone is the best backup?
Yes,
Okay.
for the local traffic, like from the same region. But
Oh,
if you are planning the redundancy between the different regions, then there are different solutions.
okay. And nobody used this fault domain thing.
It was used and it is still there, but I think better to use availability zones instead of fault domains, right? Do the
Yes,
better
yes.
planning. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm gonna create one VNet here. Okay. You guys can create your Azure subscription. This will be the free trial for first month, right? And then later you'll have to pay the price, like you can use the pay as you go model on your credit card. Okay, and this can be, I think, only created with the help of credit card. Otherwise I've tried with the debit card, it was not working for me. Maybe you guys can try. So let's say I'm creating a virtual network. So you can click on create a resource, or you can just type search for virtual networks here and create a virtual network. So let's say I've given it a name of demo1. Okay, and let's say I'm giving it in the name of VNet1. Let's say it is in East US, and now I have to define the IP. Azure will give you some IP address automatically, but it's not that you need to use that. You can even define your own range. So let's say I'm defining 10.50.0.0/16, and I'll define subnet 1 here. This is 10.50.0.0/24, and I'm gonna keep other things as same.
Sir, where we would use NAT gateway? I mean,
this will come later.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
This is something
So
new.
yeah, I'll be explaining NAT gateway, but this will come later. So right now, if you do not want your VM to directly accessible over the internet, in such cases we are going to use the NAT gateway to answer you shortly.
This is the more secure way.
Yes, this is more secure way. How do you do it with your firewall? Obviously, you put a net gateway. You don't connect your laptop computer directly with the internet in the
Yes.
enterprise network, right? And
Yeah.
your firewall will be doing the netting for you. So
Yes.
this is one way of securing your internal networks, and other way of like better utilizing your one, your available public IP. Otherwise, you'll have to use, number of different public IPs for the different systems.
Okay, so we'll be doing the pat. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just let me create the third one as well. This is subnet to 10.50. So this will be, I've created 3 subnet ranges. Okay, it is same. So from my CIDR range 10.50.0.0, from this range I can create multiple number of subnets. Whatever number of I can create is within this range. Okay, I can create these number of subnets. Then in security, I'm just not gonna use Bastion now. Bastion is something when you don't want your machines to be accessible directly over the internet port, but we are gonna keep it disabled. I'll discuss it later. And DDoS protection, I'm gonna keep it disabled. We'll also discuss this one, and firewall, I'm also gonna keep it disabled. So this will come later, all these things. So I'll click review and create. So Azure will review if all the parameters that you've submitted are like are all okay. And if they are all okay, it will pass the validation. And then you can simply create the virtual network on Azure. So virtual network will be created quickly. So So this is your virtual network that has been created on the portal. Your virtual network will not charge you anything. So whenever you create the machine in the virtual network, it will start costing you, but your virtual network will not charge you anything. So if you click here on the address space, you can see that this particular IP range that you've given 10.50.0.0/16 is available, and these are all the address that are available to use, and what are all subnets that you've created. Even later, after creating your virtual network, you can add more subnets. And gateway subnet, we'll discuss it later whenever we will be discussing the gateway. Okay, so just one more thing, let me go back to my whiteboard. One more thing. So let's say this is my one VNet and this is my other VNet. So these VNets cannot talk to each other by default. So we need to do something for two different VNets to talk to each other. We have the different ways, but more simple way is create the VNet peering between the different VNets. So I'm gonna give you the demo on that as well. Okay. So let's go back and I'll create one virtual machine for you guys. So you can create the same subscription, give it a name of VM1. It's in East US. You have to keep the same region where you've created your virtual network. Otherwise, it would auto create the new VNet for you whenever you are deploying the new virtual machine. Here, I was telling you that you have the different options of choosing the availability zone, the high redundancy. So these are all the availability option. So I was telling you that you have the different availability. You can choose your VMs on high redundancy on the basis of availability zone or on the basis of availability set. So availability set will be something that will be across the different fault domains, across the different racks. But availability zone, it is this totally separate data center with the separate power supply. So this is kind of a best solution. And then something comes up, a virtual machine skill set. It is when you are creating the VMSS instances. So we are gonna skip that. So you can choose any zone. Okay, zone 2, zone 3. So in that case, your 3 VMs will be created automatically if I choose all the 3 zones. You see VM 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, but we are just gonna keep only one zone for now. Let's say I'm using Ubuntu 18.0.4. Let's give it some password.
Sir, if we choose only one zone, there will be no redundancy in this case.
Yeah.
So if
So
we
this
don't,
is
if we don't select a zone at all, this is the same thing. Selecting one zone and
then this will be auto created into any of the zone. Then your planning might not work.
okay.
Yeah.
So you'll have to mention here. Okay. Otherwise, it will create in any zone. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And even you can, like, if you are selecting availability zone, then you have to select any of the zone, because otherwise it will not allow you to go forward. You have the option no infrastructure redundancy required. Then it will not even ask you for the zone. Okay.
Great.
So this is right now not asking you for any zone, but I'm gonna select availability zone here and zone 1. Okay, so this is how I'm sure that my machine is created in zone 1. And let's say you are creating your other machine into the zone 2 and third one into the zone 3. Okay, so this is totally your planning. It's not Azure is like, Azure is kind of giving you the flexibility to be cost friendly, to be redundancy friendly. It's up to you what you are creating. Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. So let's say which, so these are like, I'm not gonna go into more depth on how to create the virtual machine and what are all different virtual machines are available in Azure, because this is not in the content of AZ-700, but you can yourself go into the depth of this. So these are we have different virtual machine sizes available, and these are all the price ranges which are defined. So we are gonna just take the shortest one, the smallest one. Okay, and this will load the price per month. Okay, I'm giving it the name of demo, and let's give it password. And you can select your inbound port here as none, or you can select one public port here. Let's say, because this is Ubuntu VM, we'll just select the SSH port here. Okay, you can even define the OSDs. We are not gonna discuss that in detail. And okay, have we done some, which region I've taken? So let's again see where we have what is the name of our VNet. So when I'm going into the networking section, it is not giving. Okay, now it has started giving us the option. Earlier it was not giving the option. So because I have chosen the East US here, if let's say if I choose East US 2, don't confuse that East US 2 is the different availability zone. It's a totally separate Azure region. Okay, don't get confused with the two names. So I'm not gonna get the new the name of the VNet that I've created. So it will auto create the new. So you
Sir,
see new, yeah.
Okay, so regarding this inbound port that you have selected,
Yeah,
so it will allow the port. It's not the firewall, right?
it's not the firewall. It will allow a rule on the VM level that is called NSG, Network Security Group. So we'll discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah, once I create the VM, I'll go into that section as well.
All
Okay,
right.
let's go into disk, then networking.
Hello,
And
sir.
yeah.
Salman here. Sir, so what are the like regions? Middle East, any region is available in the Middle East?
That you can explore. I don't know. There are a lot of other regions available. So these are all regions: East US, East US to Australia, East, North Europe, Even we have some region in India. I don't think I haven't seen any region in.
Yes,
Okay, we have
yeah,
Qatar Central. Yeah,
yeah. Qatar Central is available.
yeah,
Right. Okay,
yeah.
okay. It just launched like 2 months ago.
Oh
So
yeah, I was not aware of that. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that you can just see what are all our regions available. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is the trial, right? Trial this portal Azure.com.
Yes.
So how anyone can get this, right, with the credit card?
Yes, for 1 month. Yeah.
And what are the like limitations? Like I can create how much
So you
I
will be
can
getting
create?
some credit from Azure about 14,000. That's about
Okay,
I don't know, $200 or something. Uh, so you'll be getting that much of credit from Azure, and then you can create your VMs. But let's say you're over 1 month, then this credit will automatically expire. Then you'll be going as pay as you go model.
okay. So
Yeah.
like if I have used this 15,000,
Uh-huh.
so it will
You'll
charge
be
anything,
yes,
or
you'll be charged.
so we have to keep the track
Yep.
of the credit.
Yeah. So let's say you are creating this lab. I'm creating this particular virtual machine. You need to delete it once you are done. So within
Okay.
R, if you are deleting all the things, like you just delete your resource group. I'll tell you. Just
So
let
Azure,
me.
yeah,
Huh.
I have heard Azure charges like if I keep on the virtual machine, it will charge. If I keep it in the shutdown, so it will not charge, or it will charge for
Yes.
creating the VNets and all.
You can keep your virtual machine into the shutdown state, but there are some public IPs and other parameters even that are defined when you are creating the virtual machine that might be charged. That is very less, but better to delete the virtual machines. But if you are
Okay.
gonna continue your lab, let's say tomorrow, you can keep your virtual machine but into the stop state. Okay. So and this
Okay.
is same everywhere with every other cloud. It's not just Azure. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll tell you how to delete all the resources at once. That's why I'm choosing the same resource group, the demo one. If I, let's say, put it into the different resource group, and then I delete demo one only later after this lab, then my some of the resources will still be available and they might be overcharged. Okay.
Okay. And sir,
Yeah.
what will be the duration of this course? Because I haven't joined the first class.
I'll try to complete this within 25 or 30. Uh,
30
I
minutes.
don't know because if we are going into the more detailed discussion, it can take more time.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's all
Yeah.
then.
So this is where I have chosen the networking. I have chosen the VNet one, which I have already created, and I can choose any of the subnet that I have created, subnet 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna choose subnet 1 and the public IP. Let's say I'm gonna choose it because I don't have any other way to access this particular virtual machine. I have not created the best bastion in my VNet. And I need to connect with this particular virtual machine for this demo. That's why I need to have one public IP. So because I haven't created any public IP, we can create one public IP. There are different kind of public IPs available. So I'm just gonna give you one demo on that. Create public IP address. So there are two kind of public IP addresses are there in Azure. One is dynamic and other one is static. Okay. So what's the difference between the dynamic and the static public IPs? So have you heard the term of SKU, guys? The full form is stock keep stock keeping unit, but that is not relevant.
Sir, if you can
SKU,
explain in detail about this.
yes, that's why I'm here. So SKU is something it's kind of when you are choosing the type of the model. So let's say I am discussing public IP here. There are two different kind of SKUs are available for the public IP. Okay, one is basic, one is standard. Okay, these are the two type of public IPs SKU. So SKU is nothing. It's kind of a, if I think of let's say I'm buying a car, and there is one very basic model of a car, and other one is like advanced model of the car, which contains everything, you know, automatic gear shifting and every other thing. So these are kind of the two different models. Okay, even I can have one more model, but for public IP I have two models. One is basic and other one is standard. So basic is the dynamic. Okay, this will be the dynamic IP and standard will be the static. Okay, and this is the public IP. Public IP charge, it is charged separately. So there are separate charges which Azure will incur whenever you are choosing the public IP. And if it is obviously dynamic, then you'll be charged less, but it can change over time, right? You don't have any control on when you are choosing the basic IP for your VM. It can change over time, but static will not be changed. It will be it will remain there. So it's up to you what kind of IP you wanted to choose. But whenever you create a VM, one DNS records automatically generated that I'll show you in the portal. So when I'm creating a public IP address here, I have the different options. Okay, this will be IPv4. I'm not going to discuss IPv6. So you have two models. One is standard and the other one is basic. So when you are choosing the standard IPv4, you have a different options. Will this be regional? Will this be global? But when you are selecting basic, these options are disabled for you. So these will not be available. And okay, when you are choosing the standard SKU of the public IP, you are not even having the option that this IP address assignment, that this will be dynamic. This will always be static when you are choosing the IPv4 as a standard. Okay, but if you are choosing basic, you are having option that do you want the basic IP basic as the static or the dynamic. So you have that kind of flexibility with the basic, but standard will not even give you any option. This will always be static, because static is better obviously. And when you are planning the some kind of VM that is accessible, that will be accessed over internet from the users over internet, okay, then you kind of need a a stable static IP on that particular VM. So that's up to you what kind of IP that you want to choose. Okay, even you can give some DNS label name and the resource group. Okay,
Sir, the
yeah.
one point is not clear about the, sir, can you go up a little bit?
Uh-huh.
Sir, this one tier level, sir, regional and global.
So global is like you can use the IP anywhere. Okay, if you are choosing regional here, I think this will be the location wise. Let me go back to global. So this is still giving you the location, but this can be used with any of the VM in any of the location. But this confirm that
Normally in production,
uh,
what we use global or regional. I mean,
I think regional should be enough for you. So just one second. If I'm selecting regional here, let's see what are all options. It is so let's say it is regional, and I'm going to select global here. So routing preference is Microsoft network, and if I'm selecting regional, then I have the option of what is the routing preference. Okay, this is not actually on the VM level, that even whatever I choose, okay, let's say I'm choosing a IP, you guys might be aware of that. Just 1 minute. The IPs are assigned by AppNic, right? And different registries in the different region. So if you talk about public IP infrastructure, okay, so these are all managed by AppNic, and there are different RIRs in the different region. Let's say I am talking about India, I am talking about US, I'm talking about Europe. Okay, so these all regions will have the different RIRs, and some particular IP ranges are assigned to the different RIRs. Okay, so that's why they are giving you the option of choosing the tier of like regional and global. So let's say if you are choosing the tier regional, you are not even you are having an option of routing preference that you want to route your traffic over the Microsoft network or over the internet. So what's do you understand what is this Microsoft network and what is internet?
Sir, Microsoft have their own backbone, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
internet means like on the public network.
Yep. So you have that option of routing preference if you are selecting regional, and if you are selecting global, the global it means better. Okay, the preference will be the Microsoft network. If it is contained on the Microsoft network, that's better, because Microsoft can assure you that you are having a better internet path, right? And if you are selecting regional, okay, so this all comes down to the cost, obviously. And you are selecting internet as your routing preference, it means it can be routed to any of the internet router as per the refresh routing tables on the different internet routers. Okay, it can even stay on the Microsoft network, but they do not guarantee anything on that. It can go on to the any of the internet routers. Like it can just leave the region. And when you select the global one, uh, it is not even giving you the option. So they are gonna try to keep it on the Microsoft network as much as possible. They'll only release your IP into the onto the internet network when they do not have the route, and with when they do not have any particular option. Okay.
It's more secure, but with the cost.
Yes, obviously. And other thing is like IP address assignment regional. If you are going to choose basic, you have the option between dynamic and static. And if you are choosing SKU of standard, then you are just having the option of static. Okay. And I think there was one more thing. Yes, when you choose standard as SKU in public IP, you have the option of making it zone redundant. But when you choose basic, you do not even have that option of like making it zone redundant. Okay. So these are all the different things when you are creating the public IP
Sir, what
address.
IP has to do with redundancy?
Hmm?
What IP has to do with redundant?
Uh, that's a good question.
You know?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think I'll have to. I'll give you the answer tomorrow for this. I don't have the exact answer,
No
so
problems. No.
yeah, no point of making. But I think okay, let's discuss this tomorrow. But just for now, that's the kind of difference. So they can ask you that if you are giving the exam, they can ask you this question: if you are choosing the standard, can you make it zone redundant? You'll say yes. If you are choosing basic, it can't be zone redundant. So just for your exam. Okay. So I'm just not gonna create the public IP here. Okay, it will be auto created from here. And let's do next. So this may take some time. Okay. Let's also create another virtual machine in the different subnet. This is demo one. This is, let's say, VM2. This will within the same region East US2 availability zone. Let's say I'm gonna put it in zone 2. Okay. And standard Ubuntu 18. Password. User is demo. Okay. Networking. So this virtual machine I'm gonna create into the different subnet. The first one I've created into subnet 1. Let's say I'm gonna create it in subnet 2. Let's say I'm not giving it any public IP range. I'm intentionally doing it because I can access it from the other VM. Okay. And I don't think anything else. Just review and create. So whenever you're creating a VM, some things are automatically created. Because I have chosen the public IP. If I just go in the resource group, so resource group is something which is kind of a parameter that you define when you are creating some virtual machine anything in Azure. You need to give it a resource group. So this will be kind of giving you the boundary on that administrative level. So that's why you have to better plan the different resource group. Let's say you are creating one express route, because express route incur more cost, and your organization need to understand that what are the costs that has been like created by express route. So if you are like creating all your express route into the different resource group, it means you can understand the cost, that what is the exact cost that you are having from the different express route circuits for like just by watching at the resource group. And if you're not planning it better, let's say you are creating your express route into the same resource group, and you are creating your VMs into the same resource group, and you're doing everything into one resource group, then your organization will not understand the cost on the basis of resource group. Even Azure will give you the ideas when you go into the cost and billing section, but it's better to plan it into the different resource group. Even I have seen the organization, they even have the separate subscription for the express route and for their VMs and for their load balancers. So they even have the separate subscription. So just I think that's the cost model, because organization have the different cost centers. So it is possible that the networking organization is responsible for the cost of all the express route circuits, and application organization is responsible for the cost of the VMs that they have and the other application infrastructure. And then you have the Cosmos DB, maybe other your data organization is responsible for the cost of that. So it is better to plan the resource group and even the subscription. So you can have multiple subscription, and it's not limited that your resources in the different subscriptions cannot be connected to each other. It is possible to connect the resources even within the different subscription, and even within the different tenants. So do you guys have any idea what is the tenant, what is subscription? Anyone? No?
No.
So okay, tenant is something, I'll give you the idea. So let's say I am working in one organization. Let's say the name of my organization is Contoso, and other organization, let's say you are working in any other organization. Let's say it is Network Kings. Okay, so these are the two different organizations. They have the different tenants. So tenant is Azure Active Directory, where you have your email domain. Let's say my email is demo at contoso.com, and other email is on demo@networkings.com. So these are the two separate tenants. These are the two separate Active Directory. So Active Directory are separated by the tenants. So one tenant can have multiple subscriptions. So subscription, you'll be your organization might plan that this is my application A, this will use this particular subscription. This is my application B, this will use this particular subscription. So this is the kind of difference. So when let's say when you are merging the two organization together, then you need to make some AD relations between the two different organization on the tenant basis. Okay, I'm just giving you the glimpse. You can go in more details. So I was creating demo one here. Uh, So what are all resources which are created in the demo one? So I was telling you that VM1 which I have created, and this public IP is auto created, and this NSG is auto created with the default parameters that when I was creating the VM. The other thing that is auto created is this network interface. Okay, so you can even choose the separate network interface and connect it with your VM if you want, and this disk is auto created when you are creating. So these are all the basic things when you are creating a VM in Azure. Your your network interface card and your disk. Okay, if these things like should be there, and NSG is something. Okay, I'll go into the NSG first. So someone asked the question on NSG.
Yes, it was me, sir.
Yeah.
Allowing port.
Okay. So there are some NSG rules which are there by default. Okay, and they've given it like maximum priority. So the traffic, so NSG is kind of a rules that are auto created on the on your VM level. Okay, even you can have the NSG on the subnet level. But in this case it is on the VM level. Okay, so these are on the VM level. So there are some default rules which are auto created, and even these default rules will not be deleted. So this rule is created: allow VNet inbound. Okay, if the traffic is coming from any port, from any protocol, and if the source of the traffic is the virtual network. So what do you mean by virtual network, guys? So virtual network, like any IP from VNet 1, right? Any IP from VNet 1 should be able to talk to any IP of the VNet 1. Okay, because I have VNet 1 that is so my VNet has this range 10.0.0.0/16. So any IP from this range can talk to any other IP. This is what my rule says. It is inbound, and same rule is created for the outbound. It is allowed. So and other rule is created for Azure load balancer. So if the source is Azure load balancer and destination is any, then the traffic is allowed. So we'll discuss that. What do we mean by this rule? And yes, the other rule, if this VM wants to talk to internet, it wants to go to outside to internet, to any port, to any protocol. If source is any, like this is the rule, source is any, then the traffic is allowed to internet. So destination internet, it means kind of a default route 000/0. So this is the outbound rule that is auto created, and this is kind of implicit deny. You might have heard the term. All the other things other than what we have defined on the priority basis will be denied. And you were asking about the inbound port. So we have allowed the SSH port. It is giving me the sign of warning. Why? Because this port I have allowed from the internet. Anyone from on the internet, even you guys can access this particular VM, because I have allowed this SSH port from anywhere. You can initiate the traffic from anywhere. Even I can create one rule here. Yeah.
Hello, before you were saying that NSG can be applied on the VM as well as on the subnet level.
Yes.
Is it subnet level or VNet
It
level?
is on the VNet level.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So you can add the rule here on the NSG. Let's say my source. Let me try to find out. You can have any IP. So you can, let's say you have this particular public IP, you can put it into the source address of the when you choose IP. So I'm gonna choose any here. Okay, source port ranges is let's say it is any port, it is any destination. Destination is, let's say, this particular VM. I can give the IP of this VM. When I'm creating this VM, one public IP address is generated. So I can define the rules and the priority here. I'm not gonna do it now. because I already have the rule for SSH. If the traffic is initiated from any source to any destination to this particular VM.
Sir, I have one more question. Sir, since I'm from the background of networking, I don't understand this logic. See, VM level, we have assigned two IPs, one public and one private. How
Yeah.
this will work for the internet?
Yes. Okay. I'll be showing it to you. So Azure will do some magic on the back end. It will be doing the netting and everything, and with the help of that, because this VM even has the public IP assigned, right?
Yes.
So this is the public IP that is assigned to the VM. And even I am not assign like if I'm not assigning any public IP, even if I go into the routing table of the VM, so I'll have to go into the networking section. Just remember this path. This will be very useful for you.
On the VM level, okay.
Yes.
Go to the networking and then, okay.
Then into the network interface card. So this is my network interface card of the VM. Okay. And then I have effective routes.
So these are Microsoft internal routes.
Yes, some of them, and because you have created this VNet, so these routes are like assigned to this VM. Like whenever you are creating the VM, these routes are even installed on the VM. So whenever you are initiating any traffic on the VM level, so you can imagine that these routes are assigned on the router where this VM is like connected. Okay. So if any traffic going to 10.50.0.0/16, the next hop would be Azure virtual network. So what do we mean by virtual network? It will be the VNet one. So if something from the same VNet address is going to other VNet address, let's say I have 10.50.0.4 initiating the traffic,
okay.
then let's say I'm initiating it for 10.50.0.5, it will contained within the virtual network. Okay, and I have one default route here. So this is my default route. Other than this traffic, any other traffic will go to the internet.
Sir, how? I mean, see, logically, our NIC is connected directly to the VNet.
Yes.
So how they will differentiate?
What's the question? Sorry.
Like, for the 10.50 subnet, go to the virtual network.
Okay.
Okay. And for the internet traffic, go to the internet. How they will differentiate? Like our NIC is only connected to the VNet. How they will do the differentiation between virtual network and internet? What is the next hop for the both?
Yep.
Yeah.
The next hop for 10.50.0.0/16 will be the virtual network. So for both cases, the next hop will be 10.50.0.1.
Okay.
Yeah, for both cases, even for this case. But if the traffic is destined for any other IP other than 10.50.0.0/16, then that next hop will route the traffic to the other next, to the route table in the router, which is connected with this particular VM toward the internet. Okay.
So
I think
the public IP will be assigned to where it will be assigned?
The public IP is assigned to the VM interface right now. If I go back here, this is the NIC public IP. Someone else was telling something.
yeah. So I think this thing we can test by running research from the VM later.
Trace will not
Also,
run in Azure. Yeah. So I can show you.
so
Sir,
it's a
can you
VNet.
help us understand how this work?
What works? Sorry.
Like how the traffic moves, like
In
going to
Azure.
internet. Yeah, going if If we
Obviously,
want
it will go to Azure backbone network, but that's not our concern. How it is routing the traffic internally in Azure and then going to internet. We just need to understand that
sir, how SNet works, we do not
the
need to know
traffic.
about this.
Mhm.
How source net work, we do not need to know.
Okay.
I'm just asking you. We do not need to know about that thing.
Can you repeat the question?
How source net works in this case?
Mhm.
We
Net,
do
so
not need to involve in that.
How source network? What?
Source net here in this case, if we want to go to internet, we are doing SNet, right? Source netting.
Yeah, yeah.
So how this thing work here? We do not. This is like internally to
So
Microsoft.
in this case, you do not need to worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but when you are using the net gateway, you need to worry about that, how you are doing it on that level.
So we will learn that way
Yep.
also. Okay.
But
Okay.
no, that's not that. That is a separate thing. Just
Okay.
yeah. So my other VM is also created 10.50.1.4. So this VM, if I do IP address here, okay, this VM has the IP address of 10.50.0.4. I have told you that the IP, the very first IP will be .4 IP, because .1 is the gateway IP, and .2 and .3 are used for the internal DNS purpose. I'll show you the DNS record in the portal. Okay, and this IP is the very first IP that will be automatically assigned to the VM. Okay, and because I have created one more VM into the other subnet, that is 10.50.1.4, I have not done anything, but this is still reachable even it is in the different subnet. Why? If you go back on the route table, I have it open, right? Okay,
Can you show us the gateway from the VM?
yeah, I'll show. Mhm. What is the command? IP route show, right?
Okay. This is
So
for
default via 10.50.0.1.
right, right. So
Okay,
so there is no default route here.
no, this is default, the very first
Okay.
one.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, default via 10.50.0.1, and the next hop is Ethernet 0, and this is automatically assigned by what? DHCP. Okay,
what is the third line? Just public IP via
the third line, what?
uh,
I'll come up.
168.63.
Yes,
What is this?
this is your internal DNS IP. You can remember it. I would suggest
Okay.
this will always be there. Okay, this
Okay.
is used for Azure internal DNS purposes. So let me come back on.
Okay. And sir, one more question here. So purposely we deployed this Linux machine, or why we don't deploy the Windows machine here? Like,
Better. I have a better.
oh,
Purposely I did that. So in Windows, it's not easy to go on the command and run the different commands. So you can even deploy that. So that's not a thing.
So you're more
okay.
comfortable on this Ubuntu. Sorry.
Yeah.
Linux. Okay. 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 Fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Why? Oh, okay. I have came into the same machine. This is 1.4, the other one, right? So okay, this is my VM2. Let me try to ping internet from here. Just remember, I have not defined any IP address, any public IP address to this VM, right? So this is not even reaching out to internet, the other VM. Why? If I go back here,
Because you don't assign the public IP.
yes, because I haven't assigned the public IP to the other VM. So I think this will clear your doubt. Uh, if you're not assigning the public IP even to the VM, so I think better answer your question. Even I don't think it is even doing the netting at the first place. This just have one single public IP, and that single public IP will make it reachable from the internet.
Okay. Let's suppose
Yeah.
if we deployed the firewall in front of these two VMs and overdo
Yes,
over there
that
we
you
can
can
do
do.
the snatting, so
Yep,
it will
yep,
work
yep,
like that.
Sir,
Yeah.
one more question, sir. What if we don't assign the public IP and we want to access the internet? How we will do?
So then you will have to define the NVA. You can put a firewall, or you can put a Azure load balancer in front of your VMs. You need to make that solution for your. So generally organizations, they don't define the public IP on the interface itself, because this is very unsecure solution, and you don't define the public IP on the VM where you are hosting your application, right? So
Yes.
this the ideal design would be, let me come back to my drawings
So
today. Sorry guys.
you were
Yeah,
telling us about three ways, right?
three
One
ways what?
firewall and one
Yep, yep,
like
yep, yep.
load balancer. And the first one, sir, I missed that part.
Yeah.
NVA or NVI something?
NVA is network virtual appliance. I'll show you.
This
So
NBA must be capable of snatting, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
All
So
three
there
of them, I guess.
are different solutions. Let's say this is my VM. Let's say this is my VM, VM1. Okay. And I'm not defining any public IP on this VM. So I have to redirect the traffic to some kind of NVA device. This is one solution. And then that NVA is connected, have the public IP, and you can do the SNetting and define the security rules and all these things. Then this NVA can make it reachable to internet. Other solution is to use Azure NAT gateway. Okay. So your VM, this is your VM, and you can use Azure NAT gateway to reach out to internet. One solution for your VM to reach to internet is directly, which we are doing right now in this lab. So here you are not any user on internet. Let's say this is malicious user, they can abuse this VM. Okay, but in these cases, they'll have to pass through this NVA or NAT gateway. Okay, and the other solution, let's say you have multiple number of VMs. Okay, here you can have Azure load balancer, let's say ALB, and this ALB has one VIP IP, that is a public IP. Let's say it is PIP, and then this PIP can make it can make the VMs outside on internet, or machines outside on the internet can reach these VMs. So this scenario we do when we host the kind of website on our infrastructure. Okay. So guys, let me know for any other questions. I think this is enough for today, right?
Sir, I had sent one message in chat. Can you please check?
Yeah. I am having doubt related to career. Yeah. What are your
Actually,
doubts?
is this one, sir, fast class today, sir, for cloud security?
Yes.
So actually, right now I'm working in network domain, and
Can
I
we
have.
stop the recording now?
Yeah, sure, sure, sir.